Liftoff and the clock has started.
This is Timeless Spirituality. Enjoy each and every time. Time travelers, welcome back to Timeless Spirituality. Today is episode number 5. Neuroscience meets past life regression. So, for today's episode, you're going to hear from someone who has a background in neuroscience. That's right, I'm having someone on with a background in neuroscience. Crazier thing is, this person actually did a session with me. Yep, you heard me right. Someone with a background in neuroscience went through a past life regression session. Today, we are going to hear from her about how she sees past life regression through her neuroscience brain. It's pretty fascinating. It's just cool to see all the ins and outs, the intricacies of it, the way that the brain operates and thinks. And as you can see, this isn't quite my forte, so I'm just going to let her take that over. But what I will talk about is the reflection part of the episode. As I told you guys in episode number 1, I'm going to be providing my reflections regarding how I see myself through the process. And admittedly, this was an episode that I was hesitant to release because Aia, who is today's guest, she was giving me compliments. And for some reason, it was very hard for me to receive those compliments. I guess ironically, you could say, when it comes to compliments, I operate from the left side of the brain. Where I hear it, I receive it in an intellectual sense, but I don't feel it over on my right side. It just doesn't resonate with me, and I really want to get to a place where I can feel it. So I was hesitant to release it for that reason. But what I also started to notice is that this was an episode where you have two people who are doing their very best to help the others see the contribution that they're making to the world. So we're going to get two things in today's episode. We're going to get Aia's neuroscience background, and we're going to get my reflections. And one other thing I want to take a moment to point out is how my ego came through during this recording. There was one comment that I made that I'm deeply embarrassed by, yet I'm going to leave it in there because I think it's important to show where the reflection is coming into it for me. So it came at a point where Aia gave me a wonderful compliment, and I made a comment that, I shared it with a couple different friends after the fact, and they said, "Oh, that's just your humor, Daniel. Like, it's really endearing. That's just you. People are going to love it." Look, that may be the case, but ultimately, I see it as me just being uncomfortable and not knowing how to receive the compliment. So the comment is, "No, but I was thinking it." So when you hear that, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Aia, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, before we jump into your session and talking a little bit about you, my first question for you is, what is your favorite song that has to do with time?
It's Time for Africa. It's got this like cool tribal jungle beat, and it's Shakira. And I don't know how anybody who's not at least my age is going to know the song, but yeah, Waka Waka, it's Time for Africa.
The song came out in 2014, right?
I don't know. Really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you're concerned about aging yourself. It's only been 7 years.
That's a pretty long time ago. And like Shakira is not really a thing anymore, but yeah, it's Time for Africa. And I have literally, and I mean, it's a great song to have stuck in your head. Like it's a super, super pumpy tribal jam, but yeah, Shakira.
Well, cool.
And then like the whole, like if you could turn back time, like I'm trying to get that shit out of my head. Am I allowed to swear on your podcast or?
Shit.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
So who is Aia? Want to just tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
I would love to. Aia is, it's funny. Once upon a time, I was the daughter of communist immigrant parents fleeing Poland. I am trained in neuroscience, so I have a very medical science background. I've been a serial entrepreneur for the last decade, basically turning everything that I love doing into a way to support myself, mostly working online. I've traveled the world solo, I've traveled the world with partners, I've trekked the Himalayas on a first date. I'm really just somebody who pursued her own, I love the term psycho-spiritual alignment. I pursued aligning myself to the nth degree, and I've become really good at illuminating paths for others who want to do the same.
Thank you for sharing.
Mm.
Did you say you did a first date as a trek across the Himalayas?
I did, yeah.
How long was that first date?
It was 2 weeks. We met on Plenty of Fish on a Sunday morning in Toronto, and I was flying out for India on Tuesday. He had the next 2 weeks off from work. We hadn't met in Toronto. We chatted for a couple of days. He asked if he could join me. He flew into India on the following Wednesday, and we met at the airport, immediately got onto a flight to Kathmandu, flew to Nepal, and proceeded to I wanted to see Everest. So we proceeded to trek Nepal on our first date.
It really blows mini golf out of the water.
Yeah, I wrote a book about that experience. Actually, it was a pretty great adventure. I mean, the adventure of my life. It's definitely a story worth sharing.
Yeah. I want to know all about that one, but I'm going to try to keep it on past lives today. Although we may venture into it. Just, I mean, your life is fascinating. I think it is so cool that you have your background in neuroscience.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're really straddling two worlds there. And I just find that fascinating that someone with your background would be open to these types of things. I know it's not an all-encompassing statement, and it's wrong for me to make that overgeneralization about people who have a background in neuroscience. However, I feel that when you meet individuals who have that background, they're a little less inclined to be on the spiritual side of things or the unseen side of life. So how would you say that conflicts with your belief system that you picked up in the last couple of years?
The neuroscience was a very strategic, I understand now how it was a very intuitive decision. It was the pursuit of fitting in. How do you get your parents to love you? You become a doctor, you become a lawyer. Like, if you're smart, this is what you do, and then you're happy the end. Basically, anybody who ends up with any kind of education in psychology or neurobiology or medicine, like, we're all just super damaged individuals, like, with really high functioning science skills. Like, we're all just trying to heal our own story. And most of us get into academe in an attempt to heal ourselves. So, like, you end up writing theses on, narcissistic personality disorder to try and, like, debunk the myths of your mother wound. So if someone is aware of the fact that they are getting into this work to heal themselves, I think the path just, even though I wasn't conscious of it, just really unfolded for me, that this was always an attempt to heal my own pain. Science is so revered by the modern world, and yet it's funny how much science can't explain. Yet if we're hell-bent on only sticking to what science can explain, it's like we just sort of brush everything else under the rug. We don't know how the Egyptians built the pyramids. We don't know how the chakras were discovered. We don't know about why traditional Chinese medicine points work. We don't know why. We just know that they did, but we can't explain it. So we're just going to chalk it up to, like, unconventional, the unseen, the unspoken. But when you start traveling the world, like I did, and I've lived in the most impoverished, polluted, most densely populated countries on the planet, you just see a different way of life. And that was literally the straddling of two worlds, as I would be immersed in India, Nepal, Cambodia, Laos. Like, you can't go from living in the innards of Laos back to Toronto without wondering what happened. Like, how did we become so disjointed from ourselves? And then you start to realize that that's actually the root of the pain that we're all trying to heal, is that disjointing, like that disconnection. So I began searching in the psycho-spiritual space, but understanding from a neuroscientific biological perspective why this works, like why we feel better after certain practices, after meditation, after hypnosis, after energy work. Like, I I didn't need science to prove it. I knew that it worked. And I began to formulate my own theories as to why. So it became so obvious to me that I didn't need anyone to prove it anymore.
Thank you for sharing all that. And I mean, I'm going to make a very selfish statement right now, which is I'm happy to have you on our team, even though I hate to call it a team, but like the people who believe in things that science can't necessarily prove yet, because I think that you are one of those people because of your background where you can explain it in a way that a lot of spiritual practitioners can't. So I feel that you can be that gateway to a lot of people who may be more closed off to these things because they're like, that person just woo-woo. They don't know science. And you're like, hey, well, I do know science. Like, I'm trained in neuroscience.
Yeah, it's interesting that you point that out because it seems so obvious to me, knowing sort of my cumulative background, that I forget that not everybody in this world has that background. So I don't even know that I would have reflected on it. It's so obvious to me. So I actually appreciate that reflection, that I do come to the table with a background and a skill set maybe that others don't. And I absolutely see how it biologically, physically makes sense. I understand. So interesting reflection there.
I think that it gives you a leg up because I consider myself to be someone who is more on the practical and grounded side. And I do believe in science. But I don't have the capacity at this point in my life, because I haven't gone through the education that you have, to be able to really speak to a lot of people on their level. Like you can do that. I think that is so cool. And just reach more of them. Bring more of them into the fold, please. Have that ripple effect.
Come over to the dark side. Even scientists are humans. And even though our scientific theories and our data points and, our hypothesis testing and data, even though we might not be able to prove something or disprove it, we can feel it. We're human. And data only goes so far. Measurable, like metrics only go so far. And you feel what you feel. That's binary. It's a yes or a no. And even the scientists behind these hardcore data sets are all people with feelings and stories and context and a soul and pain and trauma. And their academe is often a cloak for escaping the things that they haven't processed. And we can't only sink into numbers and expect that explains the entire human experience. It doesn't. I had just not reflected on how powerful those two worlds are when they're melted together, because it's the only way I've ever known it. My science brain is actually what caused me to struggle with my session with you, because it would start to kick in, because I would start to, like, on a meta level, observe what I was doing with you, thinking, have you lost your damn mind? Like, what are you doing? And then I would remember, like, no, like, it's not time for you right now. Like, the other Aia is immersing herself in this. So it can actually be a struggle from both ends. One, to accept sort of your side of things, but then to also understand there's just a spot where science gets checked at the door. And if you want magical solutions, you have to believe in the magic. The end.
So for everyone listening right now, if you've ever wanted to turn anyone on to anything spiritual, but they're like, oh no, there's no proof, there's no facts, there's no this or no that, go grab them right now. Aya's going to share her experience, and this is coming from someone with a background in neuroscience. So, yeah, that's just my 2 cents on that one.
Here we are. Let's shatter some brains.
I always tell my clients to never come in with any expectations, and I know that this question is going to be a little different for you, because as you explained to me, you really didn't know what the session was going to be like. But there had to be some little tiny grade of expectation of what the outcome may have been, or what the process may have been. And with that said, was the session what you expected it would be?
Daniel, the session was so much more than I expected it would be. And actually coming in with very little expectation, I guess, automatically set the bar low. However, it was a massive amount of trust led by your presence, led by your existence. I mean, I was converted to you by an Instagram ad. Like, there is literally not a more cold call way to bring somebody into your space than the power of your presence. So I think my trust in you was immediate. I didn't question that you knew what you were doing. I felt drawn to the work that you do. I mean, even though I didn't know exactly what to expect, I knew that what you have to offer was something that I wanted to experience and consume for whatever that would end up being. So it was an immediate sort of full bodied fuck yes. Like whatever this guy's doing, I want to experience it. That's it. And because I didn't get around to researching more, which we actually said in our session was a good thing, I came in with no expectations at all. And I understand now why it had to be you and not the other sort of past life regression offers that have crossed my path in the past.
Thank you for that. And with regards to it being an Instagram ad, I didn't mention this to you when you brought it up to me before. The irony of that is I haven't advertised on Instagram in a very long time. So, but I also believe even artificial intelligence has consciousness. So I feel that there's some manipulation that can take place in the realm still that we can't see, or that, my higher self or your higher self went and talked with artificial intelligence higher self. We're like, oh, we're going to spit out an advertisement or something like that that's going to get her attention. Yeah, because I haven't advertised on there in a very long time.
Wow. That's funny. And it's funny because I don't remember anything about the ad. I just know that it showed up. I was drawn to what I saw, and I messaged you immediately. You respond, like, I think we had it booked within probably less than 12 hours. So everything just sort of aligned in a way that this collaboration was meant to happen. This experience was meant to happen.
The universe works in mysterious ways.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So why is it that you wanted to have a session?
You know what? Coming from a background like mine, a heavily academic, biological, neuro-focused background, knowing how much we don't know, but then the amount of time that I spent in like the Eastern worlds, really peeling back the layers of what existed before conventional medicine. There's so much that has been silenced, so much that has been stifled. I think anybody too empowered across worlds became a danger to today. Anybody who feels that there's more to the experience of life than just what they're being fed becomes too free of a thinker. Those were the witches they burned at the stakes. Those were the midwives they drowned in the rivers, particularly because a lot of my recent journey has been my shadow work, really trying to rediscover that I have a feminine, because my life has always just been this deep masculine pursuit of accomplishment. I knew there was more that I didn't know. My only experience with hypnosis from a practical standpoint was when I actually trained to become a birth doula. I also trained as a hypnobirthing instructor. And I saw the impact that the theories of hypnobirthing had on real world couples in real world birthing spaces. And it was really powerful. And my neuroscience then was telling me like this is how we think influences our body. And it made so much sense to me. And that was just a simple, 4 or 5 day hypnobirthing course, but I was always open to the magic that could be unlocked through hypnosis. Past life regression was something that I think I've just sort of picked up as sort of a catchphrase, like a buzz phrase over the last maybe year or 2 years. It just sounds cool. Sure, there's the science part of me. It's like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And then there's like the curious psychospiritual side of me that's like, but what if it's not dumb? Like, what if it's something that, like, what if there's something there? So to answer your question, because your presence was so strong, I knew that you were just a human that I wanted to interact with. Whatever you were serving up, I wanted to consume. Even if I got off the call and proceeded to think it was the dumbest thing I'd ever done, I would have followed my intuition to consume what you were offering. But I had just enough of a belief in the powerful impact of hypnosis on our day-to-day interaction with life that I was like, I don't care what this shows me and whether I can prove it or not. There's something in this for me.
Well, I'm glad you trusted your gut.
Me too.
So would you mind recapping the experience and what came up for you?
Wow, it was intense. In terms of value, I felt like the value began immediately. And this speaks to you as a practitioner. Do I call you a regressionist? I mean, you're essentially offering a form of very open-minded therapy. You're creating space for somebody to arrive in whatever form that they're in, and you're building a container of trust in which they can dump all of their shit out in front of you. And just by virtue of that, you've alleviated that weight from them. So, I mean, our session was long. Our session was, I think, 6 hours, which just sounded bananas to me when you first said, like, make sure to set aside, 5 to 7 hours. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what kind of how will I even survive that long of a session with this guy? And from the very first moment of sort of walking that path together of earliest memories and how they fit into context. And I actually found myself like trying to play small, like, oh, I don't want to take up too much of our time. And you were like, no, this is your time. Like, show up, be here in this time. I didn't even realize that wasn't the regression. I thought that was the regression. And then you're like, we're going to do the hypnosis after this short 10-minute break. I'm like, what? I thought that was it. It was nurturing, and it was safe, and it was nourishing, and like you just hold space in a very powerful way. And as somebody who holds space in a powerful way, to be held in that space was just like another dimension.
Thank you for that. Are you comfortable speaking about what came up for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first part of sort of walking through like this life experiences together, I was really surprised. I was surprised by how much was a void. Like I described it to you as like this black cosmos of nothing, which in and of itself is, number one, very symbolic, but number two, something that I really needed to reflect on afterwards. So that sort of gentle prodding that you did was therapeutic in that like you opened up spaces and thought patterns that I would never have accessed otherwise. The actual hypnosis, and you were aware of this with my science background, that I would be very left-brained and I would be very sort of fighting myself on the process, like part wanting to surrender, part thinking like these two have lost their nuggets. But you were very aware of that, very attuned. I was deeply comfortable, fully aware, and yet very aware that I was hypnotized. And I couldn't believe how quickly to your prompts the images came. From a neuroscience background, it actually takes quite a long time to conjure up a lie. It requires more connected neural pathways to create a custom made event that isn't remembered. And that was neat for me because my answers to your questions were immediate. This was not my brain making things up as I went because they were too immediate. The answers were there, and you kept reminding me, trust whatever comes, don't question it, don't fall out of the flow. And I understand from a scientific standpoint, there's something to this. The answers were too immediate. The visions were too immediate for me to have been able to be making that up on the spot, like for you. It wasn't performative. This was a recollection of some sort. And I mean, we moved across, I'm trying to remember now, probably at least 5 or 6 different scenes where my age changed, my gender changed, my place on the planet changed. I did definitely find myself trying to contextualize in the moment, which I think you picked up on pretty quickly. And we're like, nope, no thinking, like just get back to observing.
It's like, stop it.
Yeah.
Although I don't think I said it that way though.
She's trying to make sense of this right now. Stop making sense of it. It was just the word nurturing is what is coming up so much, because even the space where you were speaking directly to my higher consciousness and the observation of that, what you're creating in that moment is a vision in my brain. From my academic background, I understand that if I was hooked up to an fMRI, my brain would be responding the exact same way if I was actually in that moment, on the edge of that temple in Cambodia where we sat down with, my higher consciousness elder and had a discussion with her. That is part of my conscious thought now. You have literally in this moment, in this session with your craft, created new neural connections for me, new neural pathways.
Well, mind if I jump in really quick?
Please.
I didn't create anything. I just held the space for you to create it.
Fair point. Yeah, actually, that's a brilliant response to that, because like I just finished saying, I couldn't have made them up. You made me aware of them. You brought them to the forefront, and now they are a part of my story in a very real way. In that moment, I wasn't laying comfortably on, my bed in Mexico. I was actually in those spaces. They are part of my conscious stream of memories now. That's the life-changing part, is from a science standpoint. It doesn't matter if they were real or fake. We have no way of going back and proving, like, yes, I was those things that I saw, but they are a part of my identity now. And you have such a powerful sort of magnetic presence in conceptualizing all of it together. Like, you're so attentive in what I had shared with you that you drew in the lines where I needed them drawn. It was really powerful, really powerful.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I think you're giving me too much credit there, because it's your higher self that really weaves everything together. I mean, so like, I'm very flattered and still very humbled. And I mean, it means a lot to me that it was so profound for you. But I just asked the question.
And I mean, the humility and the modesty is, healers don't heal people. Healers are just really good at healing themselves, and then they create space for somebody else to heal themselves in their presence. So it actually even shows further how much of the real deal you are, because you're not sitting here saying to me, yeah, I'm amazing and I'm magic, and
I'm thinking it though.
I should increase my prices. Like, you're real. You're a real human. You're not unapproachable. You're not intimidating. This is an intimidating space, particularly for somebody who might be new to this, might be unsure about making the investment, is afraid of what's going to happen. Hypnosis is it's gotten a really bad rap. And had I not done that hypnobirthing instructor course, I think I would have struggled with it much more, because it's always associated with this loss of control. And actually, it's the exact opposite. It's like laser focused access to control and understanding. And it's a different kind of surrender. And like you said, not to you. Important to note, like, you reminded me of this right before the hypnosis, is that, like, I'm not going to tell you anything that I'm not comfortable telling you. I am not going to answer any questions I wouldn't be comfortable answering in a fully conscious state. Like, I still have full control over my mental faculties, and I still hear your voice to this day saying, like, you're entering into the part of your brain that's responsible for dreams. And that's so powerful to tap into that, because neuroscience can't explain dreams. There's like 1,000 theories out there on why we dream and where our dream stuff comes from. And that's the space that you're playing in. Like, that's the magic.
To piggyback off what you were saying there with regards to the misconceptions with hypnosis, I mean, I'm right there with you. The way that I perceived it before I tried it was, I thought it was stage hypnosis. I thought it was going up on stage and losing all control over whatever it is you're doing, surrendering control over to someone else to make you bark like a dog or run across the stage or whatever it may be. When this form of hypnosis, it's like a heightened state of consciousness where you still have that full awareness of everything that's going on. You're fully in control, but you just have access as part of your brain that you don't have access to in your normal waking state. Or your everyday walking around state, because I think everyone has that ability if they just slow down for a few minutes, because that's the secret.
100%.
How did I get you there? I got you out of your head for 12 minutes. Just got you to not think about doing the laundry or what you needed to make for dinner or what you had going on in a week. I just help you get to that space where it's pushing all that aside. And that's what I find absolutely fascinating about the brain, is what can happen once we just stop thinking. The magic that can come through when we're just like, whoosh. Now, of course, it's much easier said than done, because that's not something I could easily do for myself. But I find it fascinating. And I mean, what's your take on that? Since it's just a matter of, like, it's really like, I don't do a seance. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm not speaking in tongues or doing light language. I'm just talking to you and getting you out of your head by giving you some prompts for visualization. So what's your take on that as with your neuroscience background of pushing the garbage out of the side in order for the magic to come through?
We have become so attuned to living in a hyper aroused sort of masculine state of pursuit that we don't even know what quiet minds sound like anymore, to the point where a quieted mind actually becomes really scary to a lot of people that are not comfortable in that space, because the quiet is where our unprocessed pain sits. So the break in our mother bond when we were young, the early childhood trauma we experienced, the adolescent bullying that we've never fully overcome, the body image issues that we're silencing, the sexual confusion that we're refusing to bring to the surface or the forefront of our lives, like the silent spaces are where the unprocessed stuff sits. So it's actually easier to be constantly distracted. And it's very lucrative to keep us constantly distracted. So the only way that I'm worth money to any industry is to continuously try and numb me by giving me the next electronic, giving me the next, it's easier for me to play Candy Crush Saga for 3 hours than it is to sit with my early childhood grief. When the royal family started talking openly about hypnobirthing, it was, I think, the first time that the world realized there's something in hypnosis because the royal family is doing it. Hypnobirthing is not magic. Hypnobirthing is getting a birthing woman to stop responding with any kind of cortisol and adrenaline to a birthing situation, to be so in tune and aligned with her body that her body births the baby. Basically, a hypnobirthing instructor's job is to get her mind to shut the fuck up. So the naturally occurring perfect orchestra of chemicals, of the oxytocins, the serotonins, the dopamines, the endorphins, can spontaneously eject this baby. Like, women don't birth babies. Our bodies birth our babies. Unconscious women birth babies. The body knows how to give birth, but our brains and our fear. So it's basically, from a neuroscience standpoint, what you did in the session was you created so much trust and connection that you effectively shut off every cortisol, so every stress chemical response that I had left over from the day or whatever from life. You shut off every adrenaline response. You shut off any semblance of fight or flight. You brought me physically into complete homeostasis. When you've done that in my body, that is where the spontaneous healing happens. That is where the powerful imagery happens, because now you've calmed down my body to the point that my brain says, oh, cool. I don't have to worry about anything anymore. Let's get into the cool stuff. Like, let's get into the things that are rolling around up here that I've never been given a canvas to paint on. And then suddenly these beautiful portraits of past lives, images, visions are being painted. But it's because you put me in a white room and said, here's the walls, go for it. And in that moment, I have nothing else to worry about. You said to me, this is going to take up the majority of your day. This is an investment in you. You've done this for you. But then the important thing in your work is that the ripple effects of what you did for me continue to spill out in my day-to-day life. You've now contextualized things for me in a way that I interact with my partners differently. I interact with my clients differently. I interact with my children differently because of our session. So this isn't just like a, fun movie to watch in your brain for a couple of hours and then just continue on like it was nothing. Like, this is primal. Like, there's primal shifts that happen in this work.
And thank you for sharing all that. And I think you put it in such an interesting way. Admittedly, my mind is just like, oh my God, I'm so happy to be talking to a neuroscience or scientist about this right now. But I have to say again, though, you had a choice whether or not you wanted to walk away and do anything with the information that you received. Mm-hmm. I just held that space and asked the questions because there are people who I do sessions with who don't make a change after. Mm-hmm. They don't, but you did. And another thing I do is I look at natal charts for everyone listening. And when I looked at Aya's natal chart, because of this specific placement, I'm not going to talk about what the placement is because anyone with this placement would just lose their minds if I said it. But not in a way of like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. It would be in a way of, oh my God, I'm doomed for life. That's the way that I believe that placement would receive it. With that said, though, it was obvious to me that you've done a lot of work on yourself because, yeah, I could see those tendencies in you, but you were expressing the higher octaves of them. Because, for astrology, everything has a lower and higher octave of the way it expresses itself. So a lot of people that I encounter with that particular placement, they are expressing the lower octave of its characteristics, but you were expressing the higher octaves of it. So I bring this up because my question is, what have you done in the last couple of years to get you to that place? Because I'm going to make a I hate to make it, but I'm going to make an assumption right now that if I met you 5 years ago, I would have encountered the lower octave of that placement and not the more
Oh, now I
mature.
need to
Yeah.
know what the octaves are because I'm so curious. Like, can you give an abstract sort of like a side by side comparison?
You had an indication in your chart of someone who would never think that they're doing things right and that expectations cloud everything.
Hmm.
So like, that's why I was very shocked when you told me that I didn't do my research. I'm coming in without any expectations. I'm like, oh my God, she actually means it too. And it's an overactive mind. That's what I usually see with that placement.
Mhm.
And I know right away, my job is to get this person out of their head more so than anyone else. I saw little tendencies of it, but in a much more mature way. Like, you have done work on that. It was very apparent to me. So like, I want to bring this up too, because you're speaking as someone with wisdom behind your words.
Thank
And
you.
while I am a firm believer in this process, you are still the same person that I talked to before your session. I mean, maybe you're looking at things slightly differently, but I don't, so as much as I would love to claim credit for all of this, I don't believe that it was me. Like, I believe it was you and the work that you had done prior to the session as well that just ended up basking together for this magical orchestration of beautiful healing. Like, you set the stage for it way before you met me. And maybe this was just the cherry on top. I don't want anyone to think that this is the end all be all, because you have to do the work. So, like I said, I'm a horrible salesman. I'm really shooting myself in the foot here. Like, it's a great experience. I think everyone should do it, but it's about what you bring to the table. So, Aya, let's talk a little bit about the work that you did prior to the session.
I'm just waiting for you to stop speaking so I can interject with, no, this was you. Because yes, I've done my work, but there's a lot of, this isn't the first time that past life regression has crossed my path. There's been other people in my world who, particularly like in the form of an energy exchange for the work that I do or whatever, like these opportunities have struck me in other sort of moments in time, and I had just never followed through on any of it. And I firmly believe now that it's because it, for me specifically, it required somebody with a very big energy for my energy to rise to. I needed to not be the biggest energy in the room. And I tend to be. I tend to have sort of the most dominant presence, and not dominant in like a huntress way, but dominant in a very confident sort of, I've healed a lot of my shit. So there's very little power that anyone can hold over
Sorry,
me.
I'm going to cut you off right now. Let's harp on that you've healed your shit. That's the part I'm trying to get to.
Okay.
So
okay.
trust me, I'm loving everything you're saying right now. But
Okay.
let's talk about the work you did prior to the session, because you came in as someone who had done a tremendous amount of work on themselves.
Yeah.
This was not your first rodeo.
I mean, it was my first past life regression rodeo. Okay.
I'll
so
give you that
I carry, I mean, my work is I focus specifically on early life and inherited trauma right now. That is my key focus. So this is a topic that's very near and dear to me, but has come on the sort of the heels of my own evolution. The sort of cornerstone of the work that I do with clients is, are you numbing or are you nourishing? And when I look at the first half of my life, it was numbing. So I had a decade of childhood sexual abuse. I had a super difficult adolescence, eating disorders, depression. I come from communist parents who were like fleeing communist Poland, fleeing for their lives. I was born a couple of years after that. So with my background in epigenetics and sort of the biomarkers associated with trauma, like I'm literally carrying the fear of the Nazi regime in my genetic code. I have this freak fear of crossing borders. And for a girl who's like literally traveled around the world for the last 10 years, having a fear of crossing borders is not a normal day-to-day experience. So this super tumultuous childhood, I was deeply materialistic. If you had met me 5 years ago, I was like on my way to being an infinitely cooler version of myself. But like a decade ago, I was just a wreck of a human being. I was living in downtown Toronto. I was running like a super successful, sort of super swanky business. My life was about glitter stilettos and my oversized Jeep and how fancy my clothes were, the Tiffany bracelets on my wrist. Like I was pursuing, I had already dropped out of medical school at that point. I'd already stopped sort of pursuing the sciences. So I was slightly more aligned, but I was like deeply numbing myself, particularly materialistically. I see now sort of the early life trauma that came from, but I didn't like who I was. I was super insecure, super codependent, like serial monogamist, constantly getting into the wrong relationships, cheating on all of my partners. I wasn't hurting anybody. I never got caught, but I was looking at my life thinking like, this isn't aligned. Somebody said to me along the way, one of these random boyfriends, you don't know what it means to live your life for yourself. And that sentence devastated me. Like, what do you mean? Like, look at my life, look at my Instagram feed, like, look at how beautiful my life is. What do you mean I don't know what it means to live my life for myself? But that sentence cut me because it was so true. Anyone who's listening to this that's read the Celestine prophecy, the half circle, whole circle theory, that half circles are people who require somebody else to feel whole. And two half circles can get together, create this illusion of a whole circle. Those are your very codependent relationships. If a half circle gets with a whole circle, then the whole circle always feels like they're being drained into the direction of the half circle to fulfill them. So I recognized at that point I was a not whole human being. And I didn't know what that meant. This was a decade ago. So it's not like I could just, search an Instagram hashtag and like figure out how to spiritually align my life. I ran away and I started traveling. That was when I sold everything I owned. I traded in my sparkly stilettos for a trekking pack. And my first solo trip was to Europe. I went to all the countries that had scenes from my favorite love stories in them. It was ridiculous. I blogged the whole thing. I cried myself to sleep every night because I didn't know how to be alone. But every night that I cried myself to sleep, I would wake up in the morning and write about it. And suddenly, like, it's like I would patch a hole in myself. Like I would slowly start to understand who I was when there was nobody else around, even though it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. And then when I made my way out of Europe into Southeast Asia, more of that Eastern world, that was when you're really humbled by poverty, like deeply humbled. And here I am walking around these dirty streets of India in like my bench t-shirt and my Tiffany bracelets. And there's girls my age with babies begging me for food. And I remember coming back to Canada thinking like, why did I win the genetic lottery? Why am I born, yes, to, communist refugee parents, but like, how am I born in Canada? I have one of the most powerful passports in the world, a credit card with money that this girl will never see in a lifetime. Like I can physically feel this in my body, realizing my privilege for the first time. And I recognized at that point, even though I was escaping, that was part of the path. I was always meant to have those experiences. I was always meant to blog about them. And as I started blogging these experiences, it changed people's thinking. It changed people. Like there was people that I would meet, and I was dating the whole time. I'm also non-monogamous. So my current partner and I have been in a very alternative non-monogamous life for the past 8 years. So dating is actually a big part of even now our identity. And every time I would meet people and they would say to me like, I read your blog start to finish and it inspired me to book a trip to Southeast Asia. This one guy from Toronto that I know did that. And he's now like happily married to this beautiful Australian girl and living with her in Australia. And literally my blog was the reason why he went. And I just started realizing that my life had a bigger purpose than this pursuit of like expensive clothing and overpriced cocktails. Yeah, I lived a deeply like amazing hedonistic life, which was great for my ego, but like what was I doing to make a difference in the world? And then when I shed the materialism, that was when everything changed. Because when you don't need stuff, you just want to be happy. That's it. You don't need the money. You gain a different level of confidence. And I met so many people, like crazy characters. I put myself into so many precarious situations, like the first date in Nepal. Like there was no cell phone service there. Like I could have gone missing off the side of this mountain and literally like never to be found again. And anytime that these crazy situations in my life didn't kill me, I recognized like, nope, there's still a purpose. Fucking keep doing your work because like you have to make a difference for people. And then the past year and a half, I've been with another partner who's a Scorpio. You and I talked about her in my session, and she was just the bringer of the shadows. Like she was just, I think, like astrologically, she was put on my path. She could have come in any form. She could have been, I don't know, a man, a woman, a tiger, a tarantula. Like this person was put into my life to force me to heal. And for a year and a half, I was like, okay, I am going to gulp all of this pain so that other people don't ever have to feel it from me ever again. And I did it. And now, because I've been so intensely on my own healing path, like recognizing all of the numbing that I did for so many years, I can catch people's shit immediately. Like, you go on a first date with me, I don't care how you earn your money. Like, you tell me how you've healed your childhood trauma, sir. Like, I am not interested in what car you drive. I would like to know your earliest childhood experiences. Like, I look for people who take off the masks and want to appear as their whole selves. And I demand that people in my presence rise to that. I mean, it's not for everyone. It's not for most people. It gets lonely sometimes, but it means that the connections that I do have are profound. And then when I meet other practitioners, healers, therapists who carry an energy that attracts me, that says to me, this person's done their work. Like, this person is massive. This person is for real. They are worth the investment. They are worth the trust. Back to your sort of slightly humble, it wasn't self-deprecating, but like the comments where you were saying it wasn't you. And I was going to interject with, no, it absolutely is you. Because in my world, 2 + 2 = 5. And you had to be the right 2, and I had to be the right 2. And that's what made our session the 5. Me plus a different practitioner, a past life regressionist, would not have yielded what our session yielded. So
I'll agree to that one. Although I don't know if it necessarily would have been better or worse, but it just would have been different with someone else.
Definitely. Agreed.
It just would have yielded different results because I think we're all different in our own way. We all bring our own flavor. I mean, my flavors, I'm going to definitely own this one. My flavor is unlike any other practitioner you're ever going to meet.
I agree with that completely.
But you did the work. Everything you were saying right there.
Yeah.
You demonstrated such a self-awareness there, even from the get-go when you said, I ran away. Look, a lot of people, if they were telling that story, they wouldn't have seen it that way.
I didn't at the time.
Right, but you do now.
100%.
And because you're doing the work and reflecting on those wounds of the past. Whereas still, I mean, other people would see it as, oh, I was going on a journey of self-discovery, but you just called a spade a spade. You called it for what it was. You ran away. You happened to learn about yourself along the way, but it's that ability to call it out for what it is, which to me, that's what doing the work is. You didn't paint it in a beautiful picture. You called it for what it was. I ran away. Mm-hmm. You were honest. You were real about it, which is, that's what's necessary to do the work.
So having a concept of ego and understanding from a neuroscience standpoint, we live our lives for 4 things: for serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, and oxytocin. We live our lives to feel loved, to feel safe, to feel happy, and to feel high. That's what we live for. And if you peel apart the layers of anything that you spend your time or your money on, anything that you exchange resources for, you are not ever exchanging those resources of time or money for, oh, this person, I love this person, or, oh, this trip, this is going to change. No, you're doing it to feel safe, loved, happy, or high. And what you're trying to escape is the cortisol and the adrenaline. So you're trying to escape the fight or flight, the fear, the paralysis, the shit. Like, you're trying to numb yourself. So the pursuit of anything that you're motivated by in life is just this arousing brain dump of chemical cocktail in whatever form. And I think when I began to understand that I could get these feelings of safety, happiness, security, and high from things in my life that were not like little blue boxes and really attractive men, I started living differently. And then I believe that with my own magnetism, I started attracting teachers. I've studied at the feet of Buddhist monks. I've I've spent weeks on luxury yachts with Bohemian billionaires. I've slept in dollar a night tea houses in Nepal. Like I've had a crazy life, but it's because I took all the lessons and I moved them forward for others. I don't just store them on my Instagram feed saying, like, look at this beautiful cocktail on this rooftop in Bangkok.
With all that said, what does it look like to work with you now?
I would reword that into what does it feel like to work with me now?
Okay, let me try that again. What does it feel like to work with you now?
The only focus that I have in my practice now, which particularly since arriving in Mexico, so I've been here for a couple of months, and suddenly people are calling me a healer. And I'm like, what? I'm not a healer. When did I become a healer? Like I'm still trying. And that was part of why I contacted you, actually, because I was really not struggling with imposter syndrome, but struggling with like who am I? How do I know how to do these things? And you had a, really magically powerful response to that. But I am really good at loving the shit out of someone's inner child. And working with me feels like home because I demand that the masks come off and I love the shit out of you for it. And I demand that your truth is the only thing that exists between us. And I love the shit out of you for it. And all of the shame and the guilt and anything that you silence comes out in our space and is allowed to be. And imagine how freeing that feels to arrive. So I work both virtually and in person. My virtual talk therapy is I work with men and women, and obviously a virtual space the way this is, but there's a lot of intuitive work, some guided meditation, some reflective writing, but really getting into the nitty gritty sort of real life experience that is giving rise to the core complaint that someone is coming with. My in-person work is this really sumptuous, powerful, I specifically only work with women doing trauma release massage, which is somatic therapy tied with this sort of deeply nourishing womb-like healing experience where, somebody flew in for a 3-day intensive healing session, a 3-day session, specifically around body image and weight loss. And she flew in. We had no idea where our sessions were going to go, but between these intensive talk therapy sessions followed by these intensive trauma release massage, excess weight and body image is just trauma trapped in the body. It's unprocessed emotions. It's emotional eating. The moment that you give a woman space to not be how she looks, but to be how she feels, everything changes. The moment you invite a man to speak openly to you about his earliest childhood experiences around money and his disconnection from his mother, and you start to understand that his relationship with money today is a direct reflection of his mother wound, but you still honor him and encourage him and hold him in that truth, the feeling is just meant to feel like home and not like a typical therapy setting. And I think that's why I'm so glad that I got into the sciences, because sciences are all, red tape and ethics and regulations and, college this and programming that. And it's lost its human component. The very first question you asked me is, who is Aia? And I said, I am just the sum of all of my life experiences. And I've had a crazy amount of life experiences that were meant to be stitched together, woven together into a healing experience where someone arrives in their whole self. And like you, I don't heal them. I just ask them powerful questions in a very safe way. And they draw the lines.
And how can everyone reach you to work with you?
So Aia June is AIA.com is my website. I'm Aia June on Facebook, Aia June on Instagram. Effervescent wellness is sort of the tagline that you can use to find my page on Facebook. And I just love that term, effervescent. I mean, we don't need healing. We just need effervescence. So yeah, typing in effervescent wellness basically everywhere will find me, or just IaJune.com.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
This was amazing. It was so nice to reflect on all of this.
I appreciate it. And, it's always a pleasure talking to you. And I'd love to have you back again. So just let me know if you want to come back on. 2 + 2 = 5, 100%. Absolutely. Okay. We'll have to talk about that. but okay, in the context of this, yes, 2 + 2 does equal 5. Sorry, yeah. There's that part of my left brain that's like, no, it's 4. But I gotcha.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you. Fellow time travelers, your journey through time awaits you. Just want to thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. And if you're interested in discovering who, when, and where you have been throughout time, and you'd like to book a session with me, just go ahead and send me a message on Instagram at The Past Life Regressionist, or you can reach me through my website, yourpastliferegressionist.com.